guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called I Was Seduced by the Sick Male Lead. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! Most people don't remember memories from their past life, but not. Hearing the sound of a crying baby becomes a catalyst in awakening Evelyn Monstera's past memories of being a preschool teacher. In her past life, she was born into poverty with little to no means. Due to overwork, she succumbed to overfatigue and lost her life. Now, she's reborn into a wealthy family, but there's a twist. She's now a character in a novel. Evelyn isn't the female lead in this story. In fact, she's a villainess who ruins the female and male lead's romance early on in the story. Oh, that's actually even more interesting than being cliché. Fearing to meet the same fate as her character, Evelyn dreads the coming of Cassis Ren Uricola, the male lead. When he comes, her character is to be punished for always bothering the female lead. As she recalls what the male lead does to her, she immediately frets. She doesn't want to be stripped off of her cozy life right now. The male lead is sure to put her family in poverty. Evelyn vows to make her fate different. She's already at an advantage for knowing the plot, so she'd make sure not to follow it accordingly. How hard can it be? Despite her best efforts to live differently, her plans are still foiled when her mother announces that Cassis will be visiting them soon. LOL. It was almost as if life said, nope, not getting what you want today. And not just visiting, but he will be staying and living with them as their guest. The following day, Elisa Boheme, the female lead, visits Evelyn for a playdate. Her character used to mistreat Elisa, but this time she's putting it to an end. As Elisa visits her and plays with her, Evelyn treats her well and becomes her true friend. As they become closer, she makes sure to pair Elisa and Cassis together in the future. That way, her fate of being punished for ruining their romance would be void. By the end of their playdate, Elisa declares that Evelyn is now her favorite. Mission accomplished. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Evelyn, Cassis is about to arrive at their residence. In the morning, the Monstera family gather at their residential grounds to meet Cassis' arrival. When Evelyn sees him, she remembers his character background from the novel. Sickly during childhood, but a manly beast as an adult. Wow, what a hunk of a man he becomes! Cassis interacts with Evelyn's mother first, but as soon as he's through, he turns to Evelyn next. Initially, she thinks his gaze is off, but all of those feelings dissipate when both introduce each other. Unexpected on Evelyn's part, but Cassis actually wants to get along well with her. The next morning, she snoops around near Cassis' room, but suddenly, one of the palace staff, Paul, catches her red-handed. In an attempt to divert Paul's attention, she suggests a game of hide-and-seek. She hides in the library, but is shocked to see Cassis also in the premises. Not wanting to be seen, she tries to evade him. However, as she crawls away, he catches her red-handed. She, on the other hand, is too focused on her game of hide-and-seek. She quickly pulls him to the side so that Paul doesn't find her. In a turn of events, Evelyn ends up leaning her whole weight on Cassis. Ew, it's almost as if they're hugging now! As she realizes this, she pushes him away, albeit not intentionally. Due to this little misunderstanding, he ends up scolding Evelyn, even to the point of saying her behavior is why he doesn't like kids. Oh, Cassis, you're a kid yourself too! However, his mood immediately shifts from disdain to cheerful when Paul walks in and catches both of them. Moments ago, he was berating Evelyn, but now he seemed to be doting on her and treating her nicely. Is he trying to please people? As he makes his leave, only a shocked expression shows itself on Evelyn's face. Nothing is more confusing to her than Cassis' quick mood shift. No matter how she thinks of it, Evelyn can only conclude that Cassis really does hate her. She reflects on their earlier interactions. The seemingly off gaze during their first meeting, the whole incident at the library, everything just screams hate. An interruption in her thoughts occurs when Elisa walks past and asks her what's wrong. Still zoned out, Evelyn asks Elisa if she's ever had experience being hated for no reason. Hearing this, her friend immediately deduces that their new guest, Cassis himself, must be bothering Evelyn. Thankfully, Elisa doesn't linger on their earlier discussion. How troublesome would it be if she were to get mad at Cassis over Evelyn? It seems like Evelyn almost always manages to hinder the romance between Elisa and Cassis. How will she ever escape the original plot? I guess there's really no escaping fate, huh? As the days go by, Evelyn makes the effort of getting to know more about Cassis. He seemed to be an introvert who rarely goes out, always in the garden or at the library. This puzzles her because in the original storyline of the novel, Cassis was always going out. Later on, Evelyn joins her mother in the garden for some tea. As they enjoy each other's company, her mother tells her of the mental illness Cassis struggles with. Turns out, Cassis suffers from mana's loss of sensation, a disease that sucks mana from the air. The disease itself poses double-edged effects on him. If he tries hard, he could wield infinite mana, but on the other hand, he could also die in excruciating death. Oh no, that must be terrible for a child to endure. As Evelyn's mother recounts all this, she hangs an idea that Evelyn can make him feel better. With that, she orchestrates a situation that leaves Evelyn with no choice but to interact with Cassis. Being sent off to Cassis's room with the accompaniment of the maid, Evelyn has no choice but to go along with her mother's antics. Upon reaching his room, Cassis is ever so friendly to Evelyn, even quickly agreeing to dine and eat cake with her. However, as soon as the two are left alone, he shows disinterest and dislike for her once more. Be friends already, will you? Despite his indifference, she still regards him and holds no contempt for him. After a while, the two interact openly, even if it includes arguments, mean stares, and denials. I guess that's one way to start their friendship. Away from everyone else, in the dead of night, the Count travels from afar to meet his daughter. His longing to meet her seems to be dire, but what is that egg he carries with him? The Count arrives at Montes, the residence where Evelyn and Cassis are currently staying at. As soon as he arrives, he immediately greets his daughter Evelyn with excitement. That night during dinner, the Count asks Cassis how he's doing while staying at their residence. Without missing a beat, Cassis replies that he's adapting very well. It's true, though. He really is doing well for someone who's in a new environment. As the Monstera family interact during dinner, Cassis can't help but observe their closeness. He almost looks like he's pained to see how much they dote on Evelyn. Could it be that he isn't close to his own family? Over the course of dinner, the Count announces that it is only fitting to throw a welcoming party for Cassis's arrival at Montes. Although Cassis does not protest, Evelyn thinks his facial expression says otherwise. It's either he's a people pleaser or he doesn't have the heart to decline. A lot of nobles grace the welcoming party with their presence. When Evelyn roams around, she notices Cassis with the adults. However, he looks like he isn't enjoying their company. Taking matters into her own hands, she rescues him from the adults and takes him over to where the rest of the kids their age are. When they are finally out of sight from people's view, he forcibly pulls his hand away from Evelyn's hold. What will he ever do with her? Can't she take a hint that physical contact isn't his cup of tea? After a while, the two finally arrive at where the noble children are. Upon arriving, everyone greets and interacts with him welcomely and wholeheartedly. Seeing this, Evelyn is at ease, but her mood changes when Luna Vanessa appears. In the original novel, Luna and Evelyn are close friends. However, right now, Evelyn chooses to stay away from her. Not just because she's avoiding the original plot, but also because Luna is actually a foul person underneath the good girl facade. She sounds more of a villainess than Evelyn in the original plot. The rest of the night, Luna crowds around Cassis, starting conversations here and there. He entertains her openly, replying to her with enthusiasm. But there's a saying that one must never overstay their welcome, and that's exactly what Luna did. Although Cassis seems like he's holding their conversation pretty well, his mood shifts to a freezing cold personality when Luna mentions attending his birthday party last year. That gaze was cold. I felt like it was in the Arctic. Despite her best efforts of recounting the events, Cassis coldly interjects he remembers nothing about the said event. His cold demeanor cuts through Luna, and she becomes teary-eyed. Seeing these events unfold before her eyes, Evelyn could only wonder what was wrong with Cassis now. Luna runs out in the pretense of wanting some fresh air, but Evelyn knows all too well that she needed time to collect herself after the whole incident with Cassis. I mean, I would too if I was stared with dagger eyes and cold gazes. Suddenly, a voice calls out to Evelyn from the room entrance. Turns out, it's Elisa, who has been looking for her for a while now. When Elisa enters the room, Cassis also happens to be nearby. Seeing both of them in her direct line of sight, Evelyn realizes something. This would be the first meeting between Elisa and Cassis, the main characters. Determined, she expresses to herself that she had become a bridge for the two to spark their romance. Life seems to have a funny way of proving Evelyn wrong, because as soon as she introduces Elisa and Cassis to each other, the opposite of romance begins to unfold. Finally meeting Cassis, Elisa immediately calls him out for hurting her friend. What? No! You guys should be getting along, not fighting! She tells him that because of him, Evelyn was sad as she felt that he hated her for no reason. Elisa just can't wrap her head around the thought of someone disliking her friend. In an attempt to save face, Cassis reassures her that it was probably just a misunderstanding. Yet again, he tries to act friendly towards Evelyn as Elisa watches. She doesn't buy his act though, as once again she calls him out for his behavior. Slay! We stand a girl boss who calls people out! Conceding, Cassis apologizes to Evelyn, noting that his actions toward her probably hurt her. But to his defense, he makes it out like it was unintentional due to him being sick those last few days. The next morning, Evelyn talks to Little Bean. When her father came back from his business trip, he had offered her a welcoming gift. It was none other than the black dragon's egg. Evelyn was more than delighted to receive it. Much more, she held out hope that maybe someday her little dragon egg would hatch. The dragon's egg looked nothing more like a little black bean to Evelyn, which is why she didn't hesitate to name him Little Bean. As expected from a child, they always make cute names for things. She converses with the egg, openly telling it that should he hatch one day, he should definitely bite Cassis for infuriating her. The next few days, Cassis begins to boss Evelyn around. Every time she refused, he would immediately display a sad look and claim that Evelyn hated him. LOL, this is him trying to get revenge. What gets on her nerves more is the fact that Cassis showers her with care whenever adults are around. Talk about two-faced. Yet whenever nobody's around, he treats her as if he is merely tolerating her. Although Evelyn hates the whole experience, she dare not let anyone think that she was mistreating and hating Cassis for being a sick little boy. One day, Evelyn pants in exhaust as she makes her way to the garden to retrieve some lilacs that Cassis wanted for his room. As soon as she arrives with the lilacs, he immediately tells her that he meant lavender. The colors merely confused him since they were similar. After the incident, Evelyn makes sure to draw the line. He certainly didn't know who he's messing with. In Evelyn's past life, she used to work with kindergarten students. This meant that dealing with children was a piece of cake for her. She knew their antics, which is why dealing with Cassis would be easy. In the later days, Cassis still continues to boss Evelyn around. However, this time, she decides to take her turn returning the favor. That day, Evelyn enthusiastically crowds around Cassis. He finds this to be a complete 360 turn, because why is she suddenly being so nice and accommodating to him? Evelyn sets her plan in motion. First, she begins to feel his temperature. At her touch, he recoils and blushes. No man, physical contact really isn't his strongest suit. Feeling him burn, she immediately calls May, the attending servant, to fetch him a cup of hot milk. Cassis wants nothing more than to bother anyone, so he declined the request made on his behalf. Upon hearing this, Evelyn starts a rouse, claiming that he wanted black tea instead of milk. She even praises him in front of May, leaving him no choice but to agree lest he face shame. Evelyn's plan is going smoothly. Of course, she knows perfectly well that Cassis hates black tea. But what could she do? This is the perfect revenge a child her age could pull. As May brings out the tea, Cassis expresses that it was to his liking. His pretending infuriates and amuses Evelyn simultaneously. As Cassis suffers with his tea, she calls his attention discreetly. Upon getting his attention, Evelyn immediately makes a face at him. Only then did Cassis realize that Evelyn put him in this situation on purpose. And that's what I call good payback. The following day, Evelyn finds Cassis walking alone. Without hesitation, she decides to annoy him more today. However, her antics are not entertained and she's immediately shot down. Jeez, he's so grumpy! Upon closer inspection, she realizes that Cassis really didn't look too well. Black under eyes, heavy eye bags, he looked drained. All of a sudden, Cassis collapses, and a look of pure shock and concern makes its way to Evelyn's face. It turns out he had been burning up due to the energy buildup over the past few days. Evelyn found it odd, though, as Paul, the servant, had said that Cassis was diligent in taking his medicine. If he did, why was he in this condition? Could it be that he spit it out afterwards so as not to take them on purpose? The thought proves to be plausible, so she inspects his things to confirm her suspicion. Lo and behold, she finds a stash of medicine in one of his trinkets. Why wouldn't he take his medicine? Is it merely because it's bitter, or is there another reason? Suddenly, Cassis stirs in his slumber. Concerned, Evelyn keeps him company. However, he starts fussing around, shedding tears, calling out for his mother, and exclaiming he was wrong. Poor guy. He has a lot of suffering under that composed exterior. He's still 12 after all. The pressure must be getting to him. Cassis continues to cry for his mother in his sleep. To put him at ease, Evelyn comforts him by whispering reassuring words and patting his forehead. Seeing him calm down, she concludes that her gesture worked well for now. At the end of the day, Cassis is still only so young. No matter how hard he tries to compose himself and acts mature, he's still a child. Realizing this, Evelyn decides that she should cut him some slack. Yeah, I really think you should, girl. As she reflects on his situation, she speculates that perhaps he's homesick. Thinking back, She tries to remember if the Duke and Duchess Urquio ever did make an appearance in the original novel. In the original novel, First Love, the Duke and Duchess never did appear. In its plot, Cassis was already the Duke when he came for Elisa. Considering that he became Duke at a youthful age, did that mean Duke Urquio passed early? If Cassis's parents weren't mentioned that much, then I guess it is possible that he lost his parents early on in the story. As Evelyn stares at Cassis sleeping, she promises not to annoy him anymore. With a genuine heart, she wishes that he'd recover from his condition. Dozing off herself, she holds his hand and stays by his bedside for the night. Aw, she really is such a sweet girl. At midnight, Cassis stirs awake from his long slumber. The earlier events refresh his memories, and he notes that he should have been more careful because now, Dr. Cliff was sent to monitor his health. When he turns to his side, he notices Evelyn, who has fallen asleep sitting next to him. It's as clear as day to him that Evelyn is raised receiving parental love. He could tell since he would know the difference, considering he's never received that much love from his mother. In the end, Cassis didn't live up to his mother's expectations. As a result, his parents abandoned him, which is why he was sent to Montes to live with the Monstera household. How cruel of his parents! Cassis lets his thoughts wander. If he passed from his illness, would his parents even cry? Or would they laugh? Because he feels like nobody cared, he intentionally didn't take his medicine. After all, nobody would care, right? But how is it that even though he did his best to conceal his pain, Evelyn is still able to see right through him? Seeing her asleep, he reflects on his actions towards her. He acknowledges that he's been mean and annoying lately, but what could he do? Evelyn's reaction to his teasing is the only thing that makes him want to live a little longer. That's so sad and wholesome at the same time. Soon enough, Evelyn awakes. Despite the early dawn, both immediately argue once more when they talk. Evelyn confronts Cassis on the medicine. No matter what his reasons are, he should still take the medicine nonetheless. Stubborn as ever, Cassis tells her that even if he did, there is still no guarantee that the medicine would heal him. I feel so sad for him right now. Hearing this, Evelyn realizes that deep down, Cassis was afraid to succumb to his illness. Evelyn could only offer him a warm smile and comfort as she reassures him he won't pass. Curious, he asks how she would know. She merely looks at him warmly and smiles as she says, "You're the protagonist." Ah! That was a wholesome interaction! In the midnight hush of Cassis's room, an ongoing dispute unfolds between the two. Evelyn, concerned for his well-being, urges him to take his medicine for a faster recovery. However, glimpses of sadness linger in Cassis's eyes, and the flicker of hope in his heart begins to dim, as if he's starting to embrace the belief that his health may never improve. Oh, poor Cassis! But you will get better, though. You have to. However, Evelyn steadfastly rejects such a grim outlook. Her nature is inherently optimistic, so as the male lead in the story, she is convinced that Cassis has the resilience to endure. Playfully, she gently taps his forehead, asserting that being a child ensures a remarkably swift natural recovery. Cassis, unfamiliar with such a comforting narrative, wraps himself in his blanket, expressing gratitude to Evelyn for lifting his spirits. Even with that blanket on, we can still see him blushing. So cute. Since that night, Cassis has constantly been taking his medicine, a development that warms Evelyn's heart. With the resolution of her concern regarding Cassis's medicine, a new challenge emerges, bringing Cassis and Elisa closer and fostering a mutual liking between them. I know it sounds biased, but I just want to rewrite the story at this point. However, when it comes to arranging a meeting between Cassis and Elisa, Evelyn realizes that there is no mutual interest between them whatsoever. Despite her efforts to set them up on a date, host a tea party, and even orchestrate casual encounters, nothing seems to work. Despite being the main characters in the story, their relationship shows no progress. Now, Evelyn feels compelled to take matters into her own hands and do something about it. As Evelyn finds herself lost in contemplation, her focus is suddenly drawn to the grand spectacle of the battle wall. The high priest at the temple extends an invitation to their family, acknowledging the substantial donation her father made to the church. Upon entering the temple, they are greeted with warmth by the priests. Before they can progress further into the church, the priest inquires about Cassis, the ailing child. It seems like they are going to pray together for his recovery. Guilt begins to manifest on his face as thoughts of him being a bother and wasting their time start to circulate in his mind. However, at that moment, Evelyn's father looks at him and smiles, expressing sentiments akin to considering Cassis as part of their family from the moment he arrived at their house. As parents, they assure him that they care for him, and he should never worry about taking up their time. While waiting for Cassis, Evelyn and her mother go inside to pray. In the midst of their prayers, Evelyn notices a child wearing a priestly attire. Intrigued, she begins to search for him, but he eludes her gaze, remaining unseen. The dining room is adorned with delicious foods, wine, and fruits, creating a festive atmosphere as they engage in lively conversation with the head priest. Among the topics is the day of Evelyn's baptism, where they recall the amusing incident when she appeared to be asleep after being immersed in the water. In the midst of the conversation, Evelyn inquires with the person in charge of the apprentices about the existence of an apprentice with yellow eyes and blue hair. A moment of stunned silence ensues, but they quickly regain composure and deny having any apprentice matching that description, although their reactions betray a hint of deception. Despite their insistence, Evelyn remains convinced of what she saw, noting that the mysterious figure dressed like a priest. The head priest intervenes, suggesting that children occasionally visit the church for a taste of the priestly experience, explaining away the discrepancy in appearance. After dinner, the head priest kindly offers the family accommodation in the sanctuary since it's already late. Adhering to the customary rules, the boys and girls are separated. Evelyn, nestled on a bed with her mom, finds herself unable to sleep. Seeking a breath of fresh air, she steps outside, only to suddenly spot someone peeking at her. The blue-haired boy from earlier! Reacting quickly, the boy dashes away, prompting Evelyn to give chase. When she catches up, the boy panics and immediately apologizes, tears streaming down his eyes. Perplexed, Evelyn wonders about the reason for his apology and questions why he refers to her as a fairy. Seated on a bench, observing the boy as he composes himself, Evelyn can't help but notice how endearing he appears, resembling an adorable puppy. The boy catches her gaze and apologizes for peering at her, referring to her as a fairy. In his eyes, she is surrounded by lights and flowers every time he sees her, creating a magical image in his perception. But in Evelyn's mind, that boy is in love with her at first sight. Who can tell the child? Just as Evelyn is about to inquire about the boy's name, an abrupt interruption occurs. Cassis appears. Before the boy can utter a word, he swiftly apologizes and hastily departs upon locking eyes with Cassis, leaving Evelyn feeling disappointed. Cassis, seemingly flustered, dons his jacket and approaches Evelyn. With a faint blush on his face, he warns her to be cautious around strangers and guides her back to her room. Aw, my boy Cassis is getting sweeter and sweeter, huh? Observing Cassis from behind, Evelyn admires how he cares for her even when it's not necessary. They walk hand in hand, and upon catching a glimpse of his ears, she notices that they are all red. A realization dawns on her. Cassis isn't accustomed to someone holding his hands. Just as she contemplates releasing his hand, Cassis surprises her by expressing that she can hold on to him if she's scared. However, Evelyn isn't holding his hand out of fear. It's something more profound, something she finds challenging to articulate aloud. He doesn't like holding hands, but he'll do it with Evelyn? That speaks a lot. Basking in the sunlight while seated in the living room, Evelyn is interrupted by the butler, who hands her an invitation. It's from Luna Vanessa, who is hosting a party in the capital. It becomes apparent that she hasn't abandoned the idea of inviting Cassis. Quickly, Evelyn searches for Cassis, only to discover that he has also received an invitation, and as anticipated, he has no intention of attending the event. Cassis harbors an aversion to parties, a sentiment Evelyn recalls from the last time her father organized one for him. When she enthusiastically expresses her fondness for parties, Cassis's demeanor changes abruptly. He becomes distant and blunt, instructing Evelyn to attend the party alone and leave his room. On the day of the event, Evelyn reluctantly attends to avoid giving the wrong impression. However, Luna approaches her and inquires about Cassis's absence, just as Marianne arrives. Despite it being their first meeting, Marianne overshares. If I was one of her parents, I'd gladly send this child to the temple to reflect. I have no patience for this child. The conversation takes a turn when Luna and Marianne discuss Cassis, and Marianne recounts witnessing him have a seizure at the Crown Prince's party. Evelyn, taken aback, can hardly believe what she's hearing. Unable to tolerate the disparaging remarks about Cassis, Evelyn impulsively speaks out against the mean-spirited comments, leaving an angry expression on the faces of those around her. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Cassis is tormented by his actions toward Evelyn. The weight of guilt consumes him as he reflects on how he shouldn't have treated her that way. However, the discussion at the time revolved around a sensitive topic for him: parties. Cassis harbors a disdain for such events, viewing them as arenas where relationships are manipulated among clans. Accustomed to conforming to his parents' advice when choosing a partner, he perceives parties not as joyous occasions, but rather as settings where everyone adheres to a predetermined script. Unlike Cassis, Evelyn appears to take pleasure in attending parties. As he contemplates her, he can't help but perceive her as unusual and distinct from other nobles. In the noble society's usual course, individuals prepare for adulthood by forming connections with those of similar social standing. Often, these relationships are driven by an understanding that alliances in the elite hold a certain degree of power. However, Evelyn seems to lack such friends within her circle. Abruptly, Cassis shakes his head, acknowledging how much he's been preoccupied with thoughts of her. Is it a result of their recent disagreements? He isn't entirely sure. Promptly standing up, he decides to attend the party with the intention of reconciling with her. Go and redeem yourself, Cassis. At the party, Luna and Marianne's faces flush with anger. They can't fathom that Evelyn sided with Cassis and spoke out against their mean-spirited behavior. Incensed, Marianne points at Evelyn's shoulder and seizes her clothes, demanding an explanation for such audacity. Excuse me? Girl, you started it! When faced with the dishonor of her family, Evelyn refuses to stand idly by and allow people to speak ill of them. From the moment Cassis entered their home, he became an integral part of their family. Her parents already regard him as one of their own, and as a result, dishonoring him is equivalent to dishonoring their entire family. For Evelyn, taking a stand against such disrespect is not just a choice. It's a matter of defending the honor and integrity of her family. That's it, girl! Show them who they're messing with! In a steely gaze, Evelyn informs Marianne that even if Cassis isn't a direct member of their family, he still belongs to the Urquio family, holding a much higher social position than theirs. She cautions Marianne to choose her words carefully, as consequences may follow. Marianne, initially taken aback, quickly regains composure, now more incensed than ever. As Evelyn embraces for the expected splash of juice, she closes her eyes, only to find nothing happening. Upon reopening her eyes, she is met with the sight of Cassis's broad back, drenched in grape juice. It becomes apparent that he has shielded Evelyn from Marianne's intended attack. This incident serves as an eye-opener for Evelyn, providing insight into why Cassis despises such gatherings. The way people discuss him as if he is merely a topic for conversation, the backstabbing conversation among guests, it all drives her to the brink of frustration. A surge of panic washes over Evelyn as she sees Cassis and she rushes towards him. To her surprise, she discovers his face and clothes are wet. As she instinctively attempts to wipe it off, a sudden realization hits her. Cassis dislikes being touched. To her amazement, he remains unfazed. Observing Cassis in his damp state, Marianne quickly apologizes, but Cassis dismisses it. He is well aware of what transpired, how they ridiculed him and mistreated Evelyn. His piercing gaze fixates on both of them as he issues a stern warning. They are never to speak ill of or mistreat Evelyn again. She's not someone they can casually gossip about. With that, Cassis firmly takes hold of Evelyn's hand and leads her out of the room. He's literally a knight in shining armor. The words Cassis spoke were familiar to Evelyn. They were in a chapter from the novel. Though she can't recall the exact context, she's certain it's from the book. However, she is perplexed as to why he suddenly chose to utter those specific words to her. Abruptly, Cassis halts their walk and turns to face her, guilt evident in his eyes. He apologizes for his actions, leaving Evelyn stunned. She questions why he's apologizing when she believes it should be her expressing remorse for being unaware of what might transpire. Cassis, understanding that Evelyn couldn't have known, acknowledges that she wasn't present and had no way of anticipating the conversation about him and his condition. Recognizing the changes from the original novel, Evelyn contemplates that it may not be as dire as she initially thought. There's still a chance that she won't follow the same fate as the other Evelyns in different novels, the ones who are despised by Cassis. Recalling the earlier scene, Evelyn can't resist asking Cassis if he truly meant it when he said she had an important family-like existence to him. Cassis momentarily freezes, but a smile gradually forms on his face as he softly affirms, yes. Since that day, Luna and Marianne no longer trouble Evelyn. The events that unfolded were undeniably peculiar and tense, especially considering Cassis's rare smile. Evelyn finds herself blushing at the thought of how handsome he looks when he smiles. Shaking her head, she realizes she's been preoccupied with thoughts of his smile, feeling captivated by him. Her reverie is interrupted when Elisa grabs her attention and shares the news that her brother Alan will be returning. Alan is set to become Cassis's secretary, and as the characters in the novel gradually gather together, the story takes another turn. I have a bad feeling about Elisa. She shouldn't harm our sweet Evelyn, or else I will throw her to the lion's den. At the train station, Elisa, Evelyn, and surprisingly Cassis await the arrival of Alan. To those curious about Cassius's presence, it can be traced back to a week earlier, when Evelyn discussed Alan's upcoming visit for the summer vacation. She enthusiastically described Alan's intelligence, kindness, and various other positive qualities. Evelyn didn't shy away from expressing how handsome Alan is and even mentioned Luna Vanessa's interest in him. The anticipation at the train station builds as they await Alan's arrival. All of a sudden, Cassis asks how she felt towards Alan and if he's as handsome as him. I see what you're doing here, Cassis. Evelyn, in a playful manner, asserts that Cassis is even more handsome than Alan. Intrigued by this statement, Cassis decides to accompany Evelyn to the train station to witness Alan's arrival. As soon as Alan arrives, Elisa rushes towards him, enveloping him in a warm embrace. The evident joy of their reunion is palpable. Clearly, they've missed each other. When Alan's eyes lock onto Evelyn, he greets her warmly and compliments how she has grown up so quickly. However, he quickly becomes aware of the intense gaze fixed upon him. Cassis. The dynamic between the characters becomes intriguing as they navigate the subtle tensions and emotions in the air. I smell jealousy in the air. Despite Alan's greeting, it becomes apparent that Cassis is not in the best of moods. Elisa fills Alan in on the living arrangements, mentioning that Cassis has been residing in Evelyn's house. Unexpectedly, Cassis interjects, revealing that Evelyn's parents treat him as their prospective son-in-law. The revelation takes everyone by surprise, injecting an unexpected twist into the unfolding dynamics among the characters. OMG! I didn't expect that from Cassis! So, when is the wedding ceremony? As Alan dismisses the claim, labeling it as a lie since nobody is aware of such an arrangement, he playfully teases Evelyn about it. However, Elisa, expressing her strong desire for her brother to be Evelyn's husband, becomes visibly upset. Alan too? No way! Cassis and Evelyn are way better together. Cassis freezes. He can't believe what he has heard. Was Alan really going to be Evelyn's husband? Elisa remained grumpy and upset with what Cassis has said, as she strongly desires only Evelyn and her brother to be together. Nevertheless, inexplicable expressions were evident on their faces. Evelyn remains clueless about why Elisa made that statement, while Alan found himself uncertain and confused about what to do next. Aw, don't be discouraged, my boy. All of a sudden, Alan and Elisa's parents arrive, prompting everyone to gather around. Cassis stands at a distance, still processing the indescribable feelings that have unsettled him. Poor Cassis. Days later, savoring the fresh air while spending time in the garden and enjoying tea, Evelyn's mother suddenly captures her attention by inquiring if something happened between her and Cassis. Confused, Evelyn tries to recall any significant events but finds nothing noteworthy. Her mother poses the question due to her observation that Cassis has been unusually subdued in the past few days. Concerned, worry fills Evelyn, prompting her to check on him immediately. Upon reaching Cassis's bedroom, Evelyn finds him asleep. Aware that one of the side effects of his medication is drowsiness, she understands why he didn't respond. As she approaches, she notices he's holding a paper in his hand, a letter addressed to the Duchess. This discovery surprises her, particularly the formal way he addresses his mother as Duchess Urquio instead of using a more familiar term like mother. Later, at the table, Evelyn's curiosity gets the better of her, and she begins reading the letters. Through the contents, she discovers a depth of Cassis's sorrow, realizing how profoundly affected he is by his parents' lack of interest and their failure to visit him since his arrival. The letters provide insight into the emotional struggles Cassis has been silently enduring. I feel disheartened by this. They don't deserve him. Suddenly, Cassis seizes the letter from Evelyn's hand, his anger evident. He is visibly upset by the invasion of his privacy, especially since the letter is intended for his parents. His dislike for others going through his personal belongings fuels his frustration, leading him to shout at Evelyn uncontrollably. The outburst compels her to leave the room in silence, leaving an atmosphere of tension and unresolved emotions. He must have been so hurt and embarrassed that she now knows that aspect of his life. As she glances back at Cassis, guilt begins to consume her. That night, she finds herself trapped, pondering what she should do. It appears she has added to Cassis's distress, and she knows she must apologize. However, facing him is daunting. She is uncertain how to mend things and restore peace between them. This marks the first time she has witnessed Cassis scream in such a way, suggesting that she may have inadvertently touched on a sensitive aspect of his life, intensifying her feelings of remorse. Suddenly, Paul arrives and takes a seat, inquiring if she had an argument with Cassis. She attempts to lie and denies any disagreement, but Paul, being perceptive, sees through her deception. No matter how much she tries to conceal the truth, Paul always manages to discern the reality, leaving her with no alternative. Unexpectedly, Paul opens up to Evelyn about Cassis's heightened sensitivity in recent days. He urges her not to harbor resentment, but rather to empathize with him. Paul highlights that Cassis wasn't always like this. Before the medication, he was a polite and endearing child of Duchess Urquio. Paul had anticipated that Cassis would maintain those qualities as he grew up. The family used to revel in a happy atmosphere, and Cassis was once a source of pride for his parents. However, everything changed, and Cassis transformed into someone entirely different. That must have been very traumatic for Cassis. He's still very young. After Cassis falls ill, he frequently experiences convulsions. While things seem manageable initially, a significant shift occurs when he has a convulsion at the Crown Prince's party. This incident leads to rumors spreading throughout the town. Eventually, he is sent to Evelyn's house, not as a son, but as the future leader of their clan. Despite the concerns for Cassis's well-being, one certainty remains. He will be a great leader, and Evelyn is determined to support him through whatever challenges come their way. Way to go, girl! Evelyn immediately goes to find Cassis upon hearing Paul's story. Finding him in bed, his hunched shoulders suggest he's pretending to sleep. She inches closer, whispering in his ear, causing his cheeks to flush red. Promising to show the black bean as bait, Evelyn teases Cassis about never seeing it, goading him into joining her. Despite Cassis's complaints, he eventually comes around and follows Evelyn. If he can just accept defeat, stop pretending, and admit that he can do anything for his lady, right? Though Cassis claims to have seen it before, his eyes betray his fascination. Enthralled by the miraculous black bean egg, he displays childlike wonder, earning Evelyn's affection for his innocence. Cassis questions the name of the egg. Evelyn then notes the egg's resemblance to a big black bean, hence its name, finding it fitting, even playfully hoping for a response from the silent egg, prompting Cassis to tease her about expecting an answer. Evelyn notices Cassis's rare smile, revealing a hidden dimple. Yes, a dimple! Her admiration prompts a compliment, causing Cassis to shyly turn away, an act that only amplifies Evelyn's fondness for him. God, this little Iceman is getting cuter every day! Considering avoiding close contact to restrain her adoration, Evelyn's plan is halted as Cassis notices her distancing. When she explains her fear of making him uncomfortable, Cassis shyly tells her that it's anything but hate. Cassis shares to her that he just finds it strange and unfamiliar with physical affection due to not being touched by his parents as an infant. As Cassis tells him more about his parents, I can just conclude that it isn't only about his sickness. How can they do that to a child? To their own, even. Shocked by this revelation, Evelyn wants to assure Cassis that her touch won't really upset him. Cassis slowly closes the gap as he reassures her, leading to a prolonged gaze. Cassis's face flushes red, and Evelyn's eyes sparkle like glitter. Stop looking so broodingly handsome, mister! I'm not supposed to be distracted, you know. Suddenly, Evelyn bursts into laughter, the realization dawning on her that by respecting Cassis's boundaries, she could delve deeper into understanding him without encroaching upon his personal space, solidifying their bond. The following day, Montes orchestrates a special event in celebration of the holiday season, renowned for the breathtaking natural beauty that characterized the location. While the site usually attracts tourists during this festive period, today it holds a distinct allure, a spectacular display of the northern lights, the beautiful aurora. Evelyn's father, fully engrossed in preparations, symbolizes the grandeur associated with the momentous occasion. Meanwhile, Evelyn just observes the surroundings, watching her father's orchestration unfold. Amidst the festive atmosphere, Evelyn is intrigued by the treasure hunt. For her, it can be an opportunity to confirm the connection between Elisa and Cassis, a relationship she believes is destined. The prospect of uncovering hidden truths amidst the excitement fueled Evelyn's curiosity, setting the stage for a potentially revealing exploration. Seriously, we're still on this plan of being a love bridge, Evie? As the event unfolds, Evelyn sees it as a pivotal moment in Elisa and Cassis's budding relationship. Lost during the treasure hunt, they stumble upon a serene spot to witness the enchanting aurora together, etching a beautiful memory. Despite her past unsuccessful attempts, Evelyn is determined that this time will be different. She sees the event as a crucial success in uniting Elisa and Cassis, convinced that fate will intervene for them to grow close together. The treasure hunt kicks off with everyone eagerly searching except for Evelyn. Elisa questions their inaction, worried they'll miss out on the treasures. Indeed, everyone's hopping up with sugar. Grabbing Elisa's wrist, Evelyn reveals a wooden box containing a stunning sphere brooch, surprising Elisa, who notes it's not her birthday. Insisting Elisa to wear the talisman for protection, Evelyn explains the brooch's significance. Described as a protective sphere, it is not merely an accessory but a symbol of safeguarding, a potent emblem meant to be worn without interruption. In the original storyline, Elisa had embarked on a treasure hunt, an adventure that took an unexpected turn when she encountered a formidable creature. This was not just any ordinary beast, it proved to be a menacing force that left Elisa with a grievous leg injury. The gravity of that incident is the main reason for Evelyn's heartfelt gesture of bestowing the brooch upon Elisa. So much for a female lead, it's always either a mean stepmom or a ghastly beast. Despite that, Evelyn still remains uneasy. Elisa expresses a desire to reciprocate, a sentiment that Evelyn deems unnecessary. Touched by Elisa's kindness, Evelyn is presented with a 4-leaf clover artfully transformed into a charming ring, a gesture that profoundly moves her. Suddenly, Cassis delicately seizes Evelyn's arm and whispers to her, revealing that he has discovered the treasure from long ago. He encourages her to hasten her pace, injecting a sense of urgency into the unfolding moment. The closeness is too much. I'm having butterflies in my stomach. Elisa intervenes, vying for Evelyn's attention, causing confusion for Evelyn as they vie for her company. Alan then arrives looking for them, and his arrival gives Elisa an idea. Elisa suggests a treasure-finding bet, pairing up with Cassis against Evelyn and her brother Alan, further perplexing Evelyn. Despite the confusion, she goes along, finding the competitive hunt enjoyable. The treasure hunt starts, and as time flies, Evelyn realizes she's lost track of time and her partner. Panicked, she turns, finding herself alone and the sky turning an ominous orange. Regretting her focus on treasure hunting over sticking with Elisa, she starts heading back, but she suddenly trips and falls near a cliff. Meanwhile, Elisa and Cassis notice the changing sky. Elisa questions Cassis about his feelings for Evelyn, citing his constant gaze at her. Unaware of this, Cassis denies it, prompting Elisa to express her desire for Evelyn to marry Alan, hoping they become family. Elisa implores Cassis to recall her heartfelt wish, yet he refuses, leaving her visibly distressed. Suddenly, Alan reunites with them, conspicuously without the presence of Evelyn. Alan asks about Evelyn's whereabouts, surprised she isn't back yet. Cassis grows furious that Alan returned without her and even refuses to trust him to find Evelyn. In a fit of anger, Cassis storms deep into the forest, affirming Elisa's realization of his feelings for Evelyn. Meanwhile, Evelyn regains consciousness on the ground, her body aching, and notices her swollen feet from the fall. Panicking, she calls out for help, fearing her dire situation. Hearing a rustle nearby, she fears it's a wild animal, unable to flee with her injured foot. To her relief, it's a harmless rabbit, providing a brief distraction. Amidst playing with the rabbit, she hears her name called and recognizes Cassis's voice. Her Prince Charming. Responding immediately, she witnesses Cassis rushing to her side, sweat on his brow. Overwhelmed with joy at seeing a familiar face, Evelyn cries. Cassis notices her injuries and scolds her for her recklessness, thinking she knew the area well. Seriously, Cassis only knows tough love. Performing first aid, Cassis's caring demeanor brings tears to Evelyn's eyes. He teasingly wipes her dirty face, expressing concern. Offering support, Evelyn declines Cassis's offer to carry her, but he insists, carrying her despite her protests. However, their departure is interrupted as the cute rabbit transforms into a menacing beast. Elisa arrives, unaware of the danger. As the beast charges towards Elisa, a light envelops her. At the time, Evelyn recalls the brooch's protective powers, urging Cassis to get near Elisa for safety. They rush, but the beast strikes them, sending Evelyn flying. Seeing Cassis in peril, she moves closer, noticing his intent to use his powers against the beast. Despite her efforts to stop him, Cassis urges her to run, aware of the beast closing in on them. As the beast approaches, Evelyn, realizing escape is futile, instinctively embraces Cassis and a brilliant light engulfs them. After a moment, Evelyn reopens her eyes to the radiant glow coming from her. The ghastly beast now appears subdued. Cassis attempts communication with the creature, leading it to transform slowly into the beloved rabbit Evelyn first encountered. Puzzled by this sudden transformation, Evelyn watches as the rabbit, now back to its smaller form, seems to heed her command when she speaks, halting its charge. A newfound understanding dawns on her as she notices a gold necklace adorning the rabbit's neck, seemingly appearing out of nowhere. Unsure if it's the necklace or her words that hold sway, Evelyn experiments with commanding the beast-turned-rabbit, discovering its obedience to her commands. Elisa rushes to Evelyn's side, embracing her tightly out of concern. Realizing Evelyn's familiarity with frightening occurrences, Elisa checks on her and turns to Cassis, finding him severely injured. Guilt consumes Evelyn as she witnesses Cassis's struggle to remain conscious. She blames herself for potentially causing harm to him and dreads making another mistake. Seeing Evelyn in distress, Elisa calls for help, and soon people arrive with lanterns in search of them. Paul rushes to Cassis's aid, while Elisa notices Evelyn slipping into unconsciousness. As Evelyn drifts away, she glimpses her worried parents by her side, her mother visibly relieved as she wakes. Sensing an odd sensation with her, Evelyn's discomfort alarms her father, prompting him to seek medical assistance despite the doctor confirming her treatment was successful. The doctor suspects a problem on another front, suggesting they consult a priest to verify Evelyn's condition. Perhaps it is because of what happened yesterday with their encounter of the beast. The priest discerns a formidable force draining Evelyn's strength, attributing it to the beast, now a rabbit, Evelyn must locate urgently. To her surprise, the rabbit is found in their garden, seemingly having followed her to the palace. Examining the beast, the priest confirms its existence, astonishing everyone with such a creature in Montes. The priest elaborates on the beast being close to a newborn, possibly gaining strength by consuming excess mana. Evelyn ponders if Cassis' low mana absorption inadvertently affected the rabbit, leading to her unintentional contract with the divine power residing in the golden necklace. The revelation of possessing divine power shocks those present, particularly linked to the beast through the golden necklace, referred to as a ghost messenger, a divine chain forged from a contract. I knew it, but what contract? Ugh, my head hurts from all the mana talk. Overwhelmed, Evelyn grapples with the knowledge that in a dire situation, she unknowingly forged a bond with the beast, becoming unwittingly reliant on it. She grapples with the realization that this divine magic could have proved fatal under normal circumstances, a stark contrast to her self-image as a mere villainess from childhood. Evelyn now struggles to reconcile her newfound identity with the contents of an unfamiliar, unread novel. Concerned for their daughter's well-being, Evelyn's parents seek guidance from the priest. Two potential solutions are presented. The first entails eliminating the magical beast to break the mystical contract. Despite the Count's urgency to proceed with this plan, Evelyn hesitates. Her gaze lingers on the caged creature, perceived by others as nothing more than a harmless rabbit. As preparations are made to execute the initial method, Evelyn intervenes. Eager to explore the second option, she steps forward, determined to pursue an alternative path. What a relief! This second method entails purifying the beast with holy water and subsequently taming it. Taming necessitates naming the creature, solidifying the contract and ending Evelyn's dependence on the divine power. How about Fluffy or Red Eyes? Isn't it cute? The priest explains the intricacies and expenses involved, prompting doubts about his priestly nature in Evelyn's mind. Her thoughts gravitate towards Cassis, prompting her to seek him out. Discovering Cassis in a state of restless slumber and evident pain, Paul delivers the distressing news to Evelyn. Cassis' injuries are far graver than initially presumed. Despite enduring multiple broken bones, Cassis remains conscious, his inquiries repeatedly circling back to Evelyn's condition, showcasing a genuine concern even in his fragile state. Evelyn then finds herself pondering Cassis' unwavering worry for others amidst his own considerable suffering. She perceives this as a significant emotional gain for herself, yet unexpectedly finds her emotions entangled in an unexpected wave of emotion. Overwhelmed by conflicting feelings, she offers a silent prayer for Cassis' recovery, grappling with the intricacies of her emotions in the midst of this unexpected turn of events. The next morning, Cassis awakens, his condition showing a slight improvement. Without delay, he inquires about Evelyn's well-being, revealing a subtle undercurrent of loneliness in her absence. Concerned about Cassis' sense of isolation, Paul attempts to provide reassurance, acknowledging Evelyn's own sadness at being unable to visit him. Upon discovering that Evelyn has been earnestly praying for his recovery, Cassis finds unexpected solace in her thoughtful gesture. In this moment, he realizes the true value of their friendship. Despite the physical discomfort he endures, Cassis grapples with a newfound emotional void within himself. He contemplates the nature of his interactions with Evelyn and wrestles with the idea of being more than just friends, stirring an unfamiliar unease within him. It's a bright sunny day, sunlight filtering through the leaves and casting hues through the stained glass windows of the temple. Accompanied by her mother, Evelyn arrives at the sanctum for her magic purification. Inside, the cardinal awaits for their arrival. Evelyn, observing the overly friendly ambiance of the place, can't help but remark on it. In a gesture of respect, Evelyn greets the Hiah. However, in a departure from the usual formalities, he insists that she simply call him Antonio, asserting that they will be encountering each other frequently. Evelyn, taken aback by His Highness's unexpected kindness, finds herself feeling a subtle pressure in the face of such warm familiarity. Instructed to place her hands in a basin, a holy relic that determines one's divine power, Evelyn marvels at the process. The water's rise indicates the level of divine power. Those who are born with divine power will have their power tested in the sanctum. Depending on the degree of his power, he walks the path of a priest. As she dips her hands, the water almost overflows before the cardinal abruptly removes her from the basin, expressing concern about her potent divine power. Does it mean she's really a fairy? Or a saint, perhaps? Confused by the sudden interruption, Evelyn's purification ends prematurely. Exiting, she notices the rabbit, now damp from the holy water bath. Jokingly, she asks it if it enjoyed the bath, finding the creature adorable despite its demonic nature. The rabbit jumps at her, seemingly complaining about where she has been. What happened to this rabbit? It seems like it came from a tedious activity. Prompted by the priest, Evelyn hasn't named the rabbit yet. Evelyn remembers that the rabbit ate a lot of carrots on their way there. After suggesting carrot, due to its love for carrots, the rabbit reacts negatively. Gazing into its red eyes, its cute little paws and smooth face, Evelyn settles on a name that seems fitting. The priest tells Evelyn if she has decided on a name, she can step up to the saintess statue. She then approaches the statue of Saint Lena, a renowned saint and former empress known for her foresight and divine power. Evelyn stares at the saintess's beauty and realizes that since then, she became more famous as a saint who rose to the position of empress. The priest offers prayer, seeking blessings for the special soul to begin anew. Evelyn is directed to call the animal by its name with her divine power. Initially unsure how to channel her divine power into words, the priest guides her. Summoning the rabbit by the chosen name Ruby, a radiant glow envelops the creature, the name embedding into its golden necklace. With this, the rabbit ceases to indiscriminately absorb divine power. How can this demon resonate such a beautiful and magical shot? Despite wielding divine abilities, Evelyn humbly acknowledges her need for guidance, recognizing her inexperience in handling these newfound powers. After a dedicated month of training, she returns home, her thoughts immediately gravitating towards Cassis, pondering over his well-being. The passage of time seems swift, and upon her return, her primary concern revolves around Cassis, whom she hasn't encountered for an extended period. The lingering absence fuels a growing curiosity and concern, adding a layer of anticipation to her homecoming. Finally back home, Evelyn is warmly greeted by everyone in the palace after her prolonged absence. Eager to reconnect with the daily affairs of the household during her time away, she makes rounds to check on the well-being of each member. The maid, expressing genuine sentiments, conveys how much they missed Evelyn's presence throughout her absence. The reunion is not only marked by joy, but also by the realization of the impact of Evelyn's presence on the overall atmosphere of the palace. Suddenly, a call from Cassis reaches her, and she notices his improved but still limp leg. Still handsome as ever. Overwhelmed by his concern, Cassis rushes in for a hug, catching Evelyn off guard. He whispers into her ears how worried he was. Reciprocating the embrace, she senses his heartbeat stronger than before, though she attributes it to the recent attack's impact. These two, are they just too dense or what? They should just be together for the love of God. Seeing his crutch on the ground, she worries about his injury, attempting to guide him to sit. But Cassis requests a little more time in her embrace, not minding the stares. Perplexed, Evelyn jests about the duration of their hug, prompting Cassis to apologize and express his relief at seeing her. Evelyn thinks something must have happened to him while she was not around. It's been a long time since she last saw Cassis, but he seems a little different. Amidst the emotional moment, a tearful Elisa rushes towards Evelyn for a heartfelt hug, contributing to the prevailing end of embraces. In that instant, Evelyn experiences a sense of renewal, as if she has metaphorically resurrected from the dead. Elisa, overcome with emotion, shares her feelings of guilt for receiving such unwavering protection from Evelyn. In response, Evelyn reassures Elisa about the mystical properties of the brooch, emphasizing its genuine purpose to safeguard those she cares about. Also, Evelyn extends her consoling words to Alan, who appears burdened with guilt despite Elisa getting lost on her own. In an attempt to lighten the mood, Evelyn injects a touch of humor into the conversation. Playfully, she requests Alan for books on errand demons and dragons, eliciting a confused yet obliging response from him. Amidst the conversation, Evelyn reveals her newfound divine power and introduces Ruby, her errand demon, to the surprise group, who are smitten by its adorable appearance. Ruby is really adorable. I just want to put it in my pocket to keep. Elisa panics at the revelation of Ruby's nature, a monstrous demon, throwing it in the air, causing Evelyn to catch it, consoling her friend about the harmless creature. As they discuss Evelyn's absence and divine power, Alan praises her, envisioning her as the future head of the Empire, contemplating his role as Cassius's future secretary. After an engaging talk, Cassis calls Evelyn for dessert. Excitedly heading to the table, she expresses her anticipation due to low blood sugar. What? However, Cassis appears puzzled by her comment. After savoring her cake, Cassis offers her more, noting her enjoyment. Observing Cassis's unusual demeanor after her return from the temple, Evelyn affectionately strokes his hair, encouraging him to eat and regain health to return to the capital. However, Cassis remains visibly discontent, his unhappiness lingering despite Evelyn's efforts to comfort him. Surrounded by the orange hues of emerging autumn, Evelyn and Cassis enjoy their afternoon tea. Distracted by the golden foliage outside, it reminds her of the fast passage of time and that it has been half a year since Cassis came into their care. Speaking of, he calls her attention, sitting across from her. He asks her why she's so distracted, and instead of telling him, she informs him about a coming event. Appreciation Day. A cross between Christmas and Thanksgiving, a time to spend with family, give gifts, and give thanks for the harvest. As she's explaining this to him, she also wonders if he'll get contact from his family this time. Curious, Evelyn asks him if he wants to send a letter to his parents for Appreciation Day, as she'll be buying cards for hers. Cassis nonchalantly declines. Knowing his response, she bribes him with her company to go shopping and enjoy desserts at a cafe. Surprisingly, he accepts, to Evelyn's utter joy. Hurrying to prepare, Evelyn decides to invite their friend Elisa with them so they can enjoy more cakes at the cafe, much to Cassis's dismay. Aw, he just wants to be with her. Arriving in town, Evelyn excitedly looks out the window. Colorful banners decorate the street for the upcoming Appreciation Day. The carriage grinds to a stop in front of the general store. Just Cassis and Evelyn, as Elisa seems to be late. Boy's got his wish. Like a proper gentleman, Cassis offers his hand to assist her down the carriage, giving her the opportunity to tease him. At the general store, Evelyn is immediately distracted by all the other things except what she came for. Cassis reins her in, reminding her of the cards. Making sure she doesn't get distracted again and get lost in the crowd, he holds her hand along the way. OMG, uncensored hand-holding! Finally, in the cards section, Evelyn finds herself bombarded by all the design options. So she makes Cassis pick, ensuring he doesn't get bored. He does so diligently, and he walks off right away. She follows him and finds him staring at a silver locket with a sapphire dove. Thinking nothing of it as the locket also caught her eye when they came in, she asks him if he wants to get it for someone. Cassis walks away abruptly and denies his interest. Evelyn catches up to him and holds his hand. There's a lot of people on the street after all. They go their merry way to the cafe, holding hands. Elisa was already there at the cafe, waiting for them to arrive. She apologizes for being late and unable to shop with them, and she explains that she was checking out an artifact brought in by a merchant from the Kingdom of Radium. Hearing the word artifact, Evelyn perks up. She wants to meet this merchant too. Aldo, the merchant from the Kingdom of Radium, introduces himself to Lady Monsteris and Cassis. Laid out all around the room are his wares, from small accessories to house fittings. Lady Monstera, interested in the rugs on display, talks with Aldo as Evelyn grabs the attention of the assistant. She asks him if they have any artifacts. The assistant enthusiastically displays the artifacts in front of her. A glass egg-looking thing that turns out to be a dragon egg incubator grabs her attention, which she immediately buys right after the assistant's explanation. Just the perfect thing for her being. He hands her a small crystal ball, the incubator's power source that draws mana from its surroundings. Witnessing the exchange, Cassis notices a ring on the table and asks the assistant about its price. He offers it for free to them since they're buying so much, but Cassis insists on paying for the ring. Evelyn asks him why he wants to pay for it. Cassis explains that the ring is a treasure called Sanctus Lena's Tears, crafted by the famous Penesperon. Hearing his explanation, the assistant merchant retracts his offer. On Appreciation Day, Evelyn presents her gifts to her parents first of all. Other than the card, she also got them matching brooches and handmade handkerchiefs prepared with love and received with gratitude from both parents. She goes over to Cassis and gives him his gift. She teases him first with a blue rose that matches his eyes, which she tucks behind his ear before eventually handing him a small box. Still blushing from Evelyn's little tirade, he opens the box. Gently laid inside is the silver locket from the store they looked at briefly the other day. He just stands there looking at the locket, blushing as she explains the gift. A moment passes, enough for her to overthink that he might not like it. He hands her something from his pocket. In a similar box as the one he received from her, there is this same locket. She realizes that he was looking at it at the store to give it to her. Oh, twinning! Isn't this what couples do? Later that day at the greenhouse, Evelyn observes the dragon egg incubator she got from the merchant. Bean, the dragon egg already in the device, seems to be looking lighter, which means the incubator works and that it might hatch soon. Ruby, the rabbit, is there as well, keeping an eye on the egg. The maid calls Evelyn away, reminding her about her meeting with Elisa. Getting up, Ruby fusses at her as if to say she wants to go too, but is shut down since Elisa is afraid of the rabbit. It can't go with her. Dejected, the rabbit turns its attention to the egg and pushes the incubator to the edge of the table. To Ruby's absolute horror, the artifact falls and the egg cracks inside. Now, little one, you are so done. Elisa excitedly greets Evelyn, leading her through the house, and goes on rambling about the artifact that her father recently appraised. They arrive at the meeting room, and Elisa delightfully leads her to the table where the artifact lies. Evelyn recognizes it at first glance. Its pink cover and haphazardly placed stickers are all too familiar. It's her past life's diary. She freezes for a moment, to Elisa's surprise. Evelyn quickly recovers, rationalizing the diary's appearance as just a similar design to hers. She flips through the contents of the document with Elisa's permission, still denying her suspicions. A quick glance at the text, and she knows it's definitely hers. She worries at first that her friend might have read it, but is quickly reminded that her diary was written in Korean, and only she can read it in this world. Calming down, she remembers from the novel that things like this happen when objects from the real world are common and referred to as artifacts. Evelyn then proposes an exchange with their dad's consent, which she doesn't have yet. Elisa is apprehensive to agree right away. It's her dad's after all. The artifact seems to be a collection of poems, according to the appraiser. By remembering the times when she wrote them in her past life, Evelyn can understand why they can be mistaken for poems. She wrote so creatively when she was thinking of ways to maim that director. Their meeting ends with Evelyn walking away, embarrassed and determined to get her diary back so she can burn it. At the same time, going from vial to vial and taking out excess mana from his body, Cassis realizes he has used more vials than usual. The butler, Paul, also notices this, taking note of his increased mana absorption. On the subject of magic, Cassis asks Paul if his father relayed any message for him when the magic tools were sent. Paul pitifully informs him of no such thing, and that he will tell him if any. Cassis slumps down on his bed. He expected this, of course. Put his parents in jail for neglect. He notices the servant's energetic demeanor. Paul satisfies his curiosity by telling him about Evelyn's gifts to all the servants, causing their happy mood. The environment is surely different from his cold home. Here in the Monstera estate, the master takes care of their servants, which he finds interesting. Pulling out his locket, he thinks of Evelyn, who seems to be ignorant of the traditions in the capital. Exchanging lockets is a form of confession. He finds himself admitting to himself, with all of Evelyn's good qualities, that he has actually grown to like her. Oh, is this unrequited love? Evelyn cheerfully walks down the hall to her room, diary in hand. She finally has it after a successful trade with Elisa's father. She sits in front of the fireplace, her diary above her head, ready to dispose of her past. She changes her mind for a bit, though, deciding to read it one last time. Reading her diary, she is reminded of how simple, foolish, and hopeful she was. For her, it was like opening a time capsule and finding a life she lived as best as she could. It was the only reminder of her past, and since no one but her can read it, she decides to keep it. Ruby surprises Evelyn as she is storing the diary away in a drawer. The rabbit looks at her sideways, acting coyly. She immediately recognizes the look and knows the rabbit's done something wrong. Evelyn questions the rabbit, but is interrupted by a loud bang from outside and the maid entering the room to inform her about the explosion in the greenhouse. The greenhouse. It takes her a second, but then she remembers. She runs in the direction of the greenhouse, worried for Bean. The knights at the greenhouse were in a panic about a dragon when she arrived. She ignores their warnings as she rushes inside, calling out to her pet. "Oh, you devious little devil!" A swish of the air and the halt of black wings grab her attention. A small black dragon looks at her attentively and cutely chirps in recognition at her. Bean is too cute to just stare at, so she hugs it tightly while admiring its coloring. One of the knights, shocked by what he's seeing, tries to protect her, but she assures him that her pet is harmless. He takes her word for it and walks away. Mr. Knight basically just understands "have a great day" greeting like it's normal. Being still in her arms, she assesses the damage to the greenhouse. The once pristine building now has a huge hole in the roof, but it's nothing that a lot of money can't fix. Holding up the dragon, she forgives it for the destruction, as it was only calling out to her when it hatched. Bean suddenly perks up and flies away. As fast as it left, the dragon came back, bringing Ruby along. Bean points its snout at the broken incubator, then at the rabbit. The little culprit averts its gaze, looking guilty as ever. The dragon snitching the rabbit out didn't seem to deter the two's emerging closeness, though, Evelyn notices. Cassis calls out to her, arriving a little late to the party. She introduces her pet right away as the cause of the commotion. She invites him to pet Bean. He reluctantly accepts the offer, slowly raising his hand closer to the dragon's head. It doesn't reach the top of its head, though, as it's stuck in its mouth. I mean, it's still an animal after all. Bean's maw is still attached to Cassis's hand, and Evelyn demands it be let go. When it does, 2 of the boy's fingers bleed. Evelyn checks the wound, coming to the conclusion that it might leave scars on his pretty hands. Taking accountability for her pet's actions, Evelyn claims responsibility by giving him whatever reward he might want later on before hurrying to find a doctor for him and leaving him alone with his assailant. One treatment later, in his room, Evelyn scolds Cassis for leaving the greenhouse, which made it hard for her and the doctor to locate him. She's upset as she's concerned a scar might form. He disagrees, thinking a scar might make him look less weak. She shuts him down sternly. Scar or no scar, he would still be weak if he didn't work hard. Evelyn's frank attitude prompts him to play the victim card, pretending to be hurt by her mean comments. She catches on to this act right away, but she doesn't act out of bounds. It was her fault, after all. Bean kept its promise when it was still an egg to bite Cassis when it hatched. She fears that he will find out about her transgression years later, leave scars on his fingers, and demand retribution. Evelyn, calm the delusion down. I bet he really doesn't mind. Her exaggerated delusions cause her to stand suddenly and exclaim about her cozy life. She realizes right away that her behavior is making him misunderstand. She attempts to clear the air right away, expressing her desire to take care of him. Cassis blushes at her nearness, tongue-tied. Seeing his agitation and the way he's acting, the atmosphere suddenly changes around them, making her blush as well. A tapping at the glass door to the balcony interrupts their awkward moment. Evelyn sees Ruby right away. Nearing the door, she sees Bean as well. Evelyn scolds Bean for disobeying her request to stay in the greenhouse and for bothering the rabbit, also banning it from getting close to Cassis. Bean seems to understand, remorsefully chirping and nodding. Out of the blue, Cassis approaches her from the back and places his hand on the door. Looking straight into his attacker's eyes, he closes the door to the balcony. For full effect, he teases Evelyn, which results in the dragon furiously slamming at the balcony door. Boy, Cassis knows how to work up both the master and the pet. Placing a letter on the table, her dark hair and pale skin shine in the moonlight. She calls her butler Gilbert, informing him of her plan to go to Montes. Who's this mommy? What is she planning? News of the Duchess's visit to Montes to thank her personally for taking care of Cassis holds Evelyn in disbelief. Paul, the butler, proposes that it might be a ruse to see her son, which saddens her. For a parent to have an excuse other than wanting to meet their child is just neglectful. Paul continues to suggest that the Duchess will be taking her child back to the capital. The thought of his departure has her feeling empty. She realizes that she actually cares for him now after witnessing his change. Evelyn sips her drink, trying to appear unaffected, but Paul sees through her attempts to hide her sadness. That night, after receiving the Duchess's news, Cassis suffered a seizure. Placing a damp towel on his forehead, Evelyn looks at him with a constant worried look, which is wiped right away as Cassis wakes and teases her for almost crying. Can you let her have her moment? Go back to sleep. She asks him how he feels about his mother and if he missed her. Evelyn knows that he did, as evident from the unsent letter she saw and how he cried in his sleep for his mother. Cassis clarifies that he did miss her, even now, but is missing something else now. This is a lead up to something, I can feel it. He tells her that he wants to stay sick so he can stay. She doesn't believe him. She knows that he will eventually forget about her, as she was only a small part of his childhood in the novel. Evelyn goes on her usual adult talk to berate him about not wanting to get well. Ignoring her deflection as if he read her mind, he assures her that he won't forget her. He promises to remember the time they spent together. Touched by his promise, she blushes and panics. She is out the door in an instant after blurting out a hurried excuse, leaving poor Cassis with his unheard words. Was he about to confess? Running through the hallway, Evelyn tries to rationalize Cassis's words in her head, which are making her self-conscious. Unable to see the way, Evelyn collides with the maid. She apologizes to May right away. As attentive as ever, May notices Evelyn's unusual rosy pallor and goes to summon the doctor immediately. Evelyn tries to assure her that she's really okay. But she's not, says the doctor. She's only contracted the common cold, to her relief, not anything caused by what Cassis said to her. Or tried to say. You didn't let him finish. This girl would rather be sick than catch feelings. May goes on to fetch her water and candy for her medicine, making her even more ecstatic for the coming dessert. She spent the remaining days of autumn in bed recovering from the most severe fever she experienced. During that time, she was mostly asleep, waking occasionally to find either her parents or Cassis watching over her beside the bed. The fever went down eventually, just in time for the coming of winter. Still in bed, Evelyn turns to the side to change her position, wanting to sleep more. She hears the door creak and Cassis's voice. He's come to take care of her again. Missing the timing to say something to him, she pretends to sleep. Cassis wipes her forehead with a damp towel. Just like all the other times she did him, now their roles are reversed. She sneaks a peek at him. He looks more like his actual age today, acting all reliable. She's forgotten that he is actually older than her, and she realizes that she appreciates his gesture. Giving in to being taken care of, Evelyn falls back to sleep in bliss. Feeling well enough, she finds herself in a room full of gifts. Piles and piles of them were laid out by the servants in the hall. Paul relays the Duchess's regards and appreciation to her. He also offers to send a request to build a warehouse for all the gifts, which Evelyn vehemently declines. Gilbert, the Duchess's butler, introduces himself and once again expresses his master's gratitude. Since he's here, she expected him to be with her butler. He informs her that the Duchess is staying at a nearby Hiah temple for the time being. May whispers to her about the Duchess's letter to inform her of such while she was in bed, also relaying the rumor that the woman is rumored to be a believer in the temple's teachings. This is all happening in front of Gilbert. He's just standing there awkwardly. Evelyn asks Gilbert how long the Duchess will visit, earning her an inconclusive answer from the butler. Gilbert approaches Paul and asks him about Cassis's whereabouts. Paul tells him that he is resting and still recovering from a cough. He decides not to meet his master's son and proceeds to leave since he's done with what he came for, to deliver the gifts. By the way the butler acted and how seemingly uncaring the Duchess is towards her son, Evelyn sympathizes with Cassis. Receiving no affection and only being treated coldly led him to act so maturely when she first met him. It must have been lonely for him. Paul hears her sentiment and assures her that he's not lonely anymore since he has her. Oh, look at her blushing! In Cassis's room, Evelyn disturbs his peaceful laying around to invite him to open gifts with her. Curious about the gifts she received, he gets up immediately and holds her hand on the way to the Hall of Gifts. Instead of being flustered, she blushes and lets him be. His smile soothed her worry for his well-being. Interrupting their moment, Elisa suddenly barges through the door. Her cheer while greeting Evelyn abruptly changes coldly at the sight of Cassis. It seems he, too, is doing the same, creating tension in the air like a fight is about to break out. Elisa hurries to Evelyn's side, but she's taken aback when she spots Cassis. He's equally startled by their unexpected arrival. Despite the tense air between them, she musters the courage to say she's here to visit Evelyn. "Don't be too defensive, girl." Evelyn angrily tells Cassis not to speak to Elisa, and he quickly apologizes without hesitation. Elisa understands Evelyn's reaction. Her thoughts are tangled in the ambiguity surrounding Cassis and Elisa's relationship. Evelyn can't help but wonder why they haven't become a couple. Evelyn ponders why Cassis hadn't made a bold move by now. Perhaps it's why he's been at the palace for so long. Despite crossing paths, he and Elisa aren't romantically involved. Just then, a delivery of cookies arrives. Overwhelmed with emotion, Evelyn hugs Elisa with tears in her eyes, promising to do better, though Elisa isn't quite sure what she means. Evelyn also arranges for Elisa to receive a bouquet of flowers, hinting at an unspoken gesture. How sweet of you, Evelyn! While hugging, Evelyn spots a jar of citrus jam in Elisa's hand. Recognizing it's a healthy treat, she gratefully accepts it, thanking Elisa with a bright smile. Seeing that the jar is heavy, Cassis offers to carry it. As he does, he playfully intertwines his hand with Evelyn's, joking that the jar weighs more than her hands. Evelyn laughs at his remark, and Cassis invites her to join him in opening some gifts, which was their original plan before Elisa arrived. However, Elisa insists on joining them, disrupting their planned time together. Despite this unexpected change, Evelyn keeps her cheerful attitude, and the three of them head off to open the gifts. "Can you just leave, Elisa? You're ruining their moment!" Evelyn agrees to Elisa's suggestion without a second thought, though a sense of déjà vu nags at her. Shaking it off, she walks with the others towards the room where the gifts are kept. Upon entering, Evelyn's excitement bubbles over as she sees a mountain of presents waiting to be unwrapped. But Evelyn's expression shifts to disappointment. She can't help but notice there are fewer presents than she expected. I wonder how many gifts there were before. Evelyn notices that Elisa is zoning out and decides to bring her back into the moment. She thanks Elisa for the jar of citrus jam, acknowledging that it was homemade. Elisa perks up at the mention, her expression brightening with a mix of surprise and gratitude. Elisa asks Evelyn if she prefers her older brother Alan over Cassis. The mention of Alan's name visibly angers Cassis. He cuts in, his voice tense, remarking that it's not appropriate to bring up Alan in the middle of discussing gifts. I think someone is very possessive right now. When Elisa hears Cassis's sharp words about her brother, she immediately jumps to Alan's defense, triggering an argument. Cassis responds by asking if the Urkyo family would take offense if he misunderstood or misinterpreted Alan's actions. Sensing the mounting heat in the room, Evelyn steps between them. This guy was being unreasonable. Why? Can't Evelyn be in love with someone else? Elisa and Cassis argue after she mentions her brother Alan, sparking tension between them. Evelyn intervenes to calm things down, but Elisa presses Evelyn to choose between her brother or Cassis. Evelyn is hesitant, aware that her choice could cause conflict. To avoid escalation, she picks Elisa, calling her a best friend, which makes Elisa blush. Meanwhile, Cassis is visibly impatient, eager to open presents, but tries to remain composed as the others settle their differences. Just wait, young man. The present doesn't have its own feet to walk. The following day, Evelyn feeds Kong, her pet, and scolds him for not eating when she's not around. As she's focused on feeding him, she senses someone behind her and turns to see Cassis standing there. She's immediately angry, as he's not supposed to be near Kong. But it's too late. Kong flops towards Cassis, and Evelyn frantically shouts for him to run. Expecting chaos, she closes her eyes. When she opens them, she's stunned to see Kong calmly resting on Cassis's shoulders, completely at ease. Evelyn asked why Kong didn't attack Cassis. He took out the magical ring, which she gave as a defensive magic. She even asked if he only used the rocket once, which he positively answered. She also advised to dispose of the magic ring, however, he was hesitant since it was her gift. Don't be too sentimental, Cassis. You can't control Kong without Evelyn. Evelyn asks Cassis why he came, and he says he rushed over as soon as the rocket arrived. However, Evelyn jokingly wonders if he came to see her or to show off the rocket. She advises him to keep the rocket since he'll need it in the capital more than in Montes. Evelyn recalls what happened in the original story. She followed Cassis to the capital and suffered from jealousy. She doesn't want to repeat those events, so she chooses a different path this time. Cassis then asks her opinion about the upcoming debutante party, triggering another memory from the original book. A debut is typically a grand event with beautiful clothes and dancing with a handsome partner. In the original book, Elisa and Cassis were partners at the debutante party, while Evelyn was busy sabotaging Elisa's dress to humiliate her. This memory makes Evelyn view herself as the antagonist's evil child. Returning to reality, Evelyn tells Cassis she doesn't plan to go to the debutante party, shocking him, as he had hoped to ask her to be his partner. I wonder why she can't accept it. Cassis imagines Evelyn in a lovely dress at the debutante party, but she has no interest in attending, seeing it as a gathering of pretentious people. Despite his efforts to convince her, including promises that attending would help him recover from his sickness, she remains firm in her refusal. Evelyn's reluctance stems from uncertainty about the evolving relationship between Elisa and Cassis, as well as her own physical weakness. Eventually, Cassis's persistence persuades Evelyn to attend, with her gaining his promise to recover from his illness. This mutual exchange, though uncertain, indicates a growing bond between them. However, Evelyn's mood shifts when she learns that her father will accompany Cassis to Hiah on the Duchess's orders. This news leaves her confused and anxious, as it's unusual for her father to go instead of just Cassis. Her butler and maid offer possible explanations, but Evelyn senses something might be amiss. Why is she worrying that much? Monstera Earl, a successful and devoted father, had the perfect life until he faced an incurable illness and business troubles after expanding his company, leading to his family's breakdown. His daughter Evelyn rushes to hug him before finishing her meal, praising his appearance and the changes she's noticed. Earl playfully notes her breath smells like strawberries and attributes her affectionate mood to that. He promises to earn more money to buy her the best food. Evelyn just wants her father to stay close. She asks why he's going to Hiah, knowing he's supposed to stay home due to his own illness. Yet she insists on going, saying she wants to see the snow, but her father disapproves. She quickly changed tactics, saying she simply wants to be with him, which melts his heart, and he agrees to take her to Hiah. The following day, they have a small picnic before departing for Hiah. Evelyn lets her pet Kong run free, but he immediately goes for Cassis, growling and attempting to bite him. Evelyn quickly grabs Kong and scolds him, controlling the situation. Despite this unexpected incident, the family prepares for their journey to Hiah. "You're so cute, Kong. I hope you'll be more obedient next time." The butler chuckled at Kong's antics, recalling that the pet only bit its master. Evelyn then brought out sandwiches for everyone. As they ate, she noticed Cassis feeding carrots to Ruby the rabbit. Concerned about Ruby's weight, she scolded him for giving the rabbit too many carrots. After the meal, Evelyn suggested they lie down for a while, but Cassis hesitated, worried about indigestion. Evelyn insisted, playfully but firmly pushing him onto the ground. While reclining, Cassis asked why Evelyn was so eager to see the maple leaves, suggesting she could wait until the following year if she missed them now. Evelyn's response surprised him. She said she wasn't sure if she'd be around to see them next year. Life's predictability has taught her to seize opportunities whenever they arise. Cassis gently stroked Evelyn's hair, savoring its scent as she slept beside him. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by Evelyn's maid, who expressed concern about Evelyn sleeping on the ground. Cassis calmly reassured her and asked for blankets to keep them warm, eventually falling asleep himself. However, their rest was abruptly cut short by the sound of fluttering feathers. Evelyn was alarmed to find she'd accidentally knocked a parrot off its perch. As she picked it up, the parrot began speaking, instructing her to hide it quickly. Before they could react, a young man appeared looking for the missing parrot. What could be the reason why the parrot wanted to hide? Evelyn feigned innocence when the young man asked if she had seen a missing parrot. He explained that his pet parrot had escaped after eating all their food, which prompted the hidden parrot to squawk in protest. Realizing her cover was blown, Evelyn opened the basket to reveal the parrot, who was visibly enjoying a feast. The young man was taken aback, seeing his parrot, named Jack, with its beak full of food. He immediately apologized to Evelyn for the trouble caused. Evelyn, feeling compassion for the young man and his parrot, offered him the rest of their picnic food. "You have such a good heart, Evelyn." As soon as she hands over the food, they eat it without delay. She notices that the parrot's owner isn't from the village. He tells Evelyn they were here for sightseeing, but were ambushed by thieves on the way. He then mentions they are heading to Hiah, to which Evelyn replies that her group is also on their way there. "Don't tell strangers your whereabouts, Evelyn. Be cautious always." Evelyn, oblivious to the danger, invited the man to go with them. Cassis couldn't contain his concern and reminded her not to invite strangers so readily, which her butler agreed with. The man apologized for the trouble caused by their encounter. Meanwhile, the parrot demanded the man take money, surprising everyone. Evelyn rushed home to get some money, which she gave to the man before he and the parrot continued their journey to Hiah. As they left, Evelyn couldn't shake her worries about their journey to Hiah. Cassis advised her not to help strangers so readily, highlighting the need for caution. Cassis was caught off guard when Evelyn said that he must be the one to be more cautious since she was the one who took care of him. He was annoyed at her behavior, so she rushed back to the mansion immediately without him. However, in her mind, although she met strangers, she hoped to have a safe and memorable journey with Cassis. The next day, they arrived at Hiah and were greeted by the Duchess's maid. Earl asked her as to the Duchess's whereabouts, to which she replied that she was attending a morning prayer. In order to be comfortable with their waiting, the maid offered tea with them. As time passes by, the sooner they will meet the Duchess. When Evelyn noticed that Cassis seemed bothered, she immediately asked what he felt. Cassis, on the other hand, denied what he felt. Evelyn asked him to smile since he'll be meeting his mother. They were like that, not until the Duchess came, which made them stop what they were doing. When the Duchess finally arrived, she greeted all of them. Meanwhile, Earl also greeted her and apologized for not meeting her sooner, to which the Duchess replied positively. On the other hand, Evelyn was stunned by the Duchess's beauty and thought that she's young for her age. "I agree with you. How can a woman age like fine wine?" Evelyn thought Cassis bore a striking resemblance to the Duchess, with his black hair and demeanor. Realizing she'd been staring, she quickly composed herself and greeted the Duchess respectfully, introducing herself. The Duchess complimented Evelyn, noting that she looked like Helen, her mother. Surprised, Evelyn asked how the Duchess knew her name, and she replied that they used to have tea together in the capital. Cassis, who'd been quiet, became visibly tense when the Duchess asked about his health. Without waiting for his reply, the Duchess mentioned that she'd heard about his convulsions and was actively seeking treatment for his condition. This unexpected topic made Cassis uneasy, and his strained relationship with his mother became apparent. Evelyn recalled a moment when Cassis, while sick and bedridden, confided in her that he preferred staying ill if it meant he could remain in the capital. Poor Cassis, I don't know how much he suffered. The day after meeting the Duchess, the first snow of the season blanketed Hiah. Evelyn watched through the window, captivated by the sight. Her maid expressed concern about getting back to the capital, but Evelyn reassured her that they were safe in the mountains. Her attention shifted as the priest, who had helped heal Ruby, her rabbit, entered the room. He briefly spoke with them before leaving. Evelyn's father then lifted her in his arms, sharing the news that they would soon have more money. How I wished I lived a life like Evelyn's! Evelyn's father, Earl, excitedly tells her that they'll be making more money soon. Concerned about the heavy snow, Evelyn asks if he's worried about the weather, but he reassures her they'll be safe. Curious about the business opportunity, Evelyn asks for details, and her father reveals that it's about relics buried in the region. Evelyn remembers that this type of business venture had led to their family's financial ruin before, and she becomes worried. She asks who introduced him to this idea, and Earl mentions that it was Boris, the priest who recently helped heal her rabbit, Ruby. Evelyn is shocked to learn this, realizing that Boris, who seemed helpful, might actually be the one who could cause the downfall of their family. How can her father be blinded by money? Evelyn is determined to stop her father from engaging in the risky business venture with Boris, so she secretly follows him to gather more information. Her sudden busyness over the past few days even leads Cassis to question her. Despite her efforts, her attempts to follow Boris yield little information, as he frequently enters the cathedral where she can't follow. One day, while spying on Boris, she is approached by an altar boy who refers to her as Angel. Surprised by his gesture, she quietly asks him to step back so she won't be noticed by the priests. The boy, apologetic, complies. Curious about his identity, she asks for his name, and he reveals it's Apelrius. Apelrius is touched by Evelyn's question. It turns out she's the first person to ask him his name, leaving him a bit shocked. How come no one ever asked his name? He's such a cute boy! Evelyn gently asks Apelrius to call her by her name instead of Angel, but he insists that she's an angel and promises to keep it a secret. She tries to convince him that she's just a regular person and doesn't need to be kept a secret, but he holds firm in his belief that she's an angel. Evelyn asks him where he lives, and he mentions that he resides in a monastery. This leads her to believe he might be a monk, so she asks Antonio, a trusted contact, to confirm her suspicion. Antonio's response indicates that Apelrius is indeed part of the monastery, confirming Evelyn's assumption. Apelrius mentions that he's been living in the monastery for quite some time and also spends time at the orphanage. When Antonio confirms this, Evelyn feels guilty for having doubted him. Out of curiosity, she asks Apelrius if he's a monk, and he answers yes. Hearing this, Evelyn gets an idea. Since he's a monk and has access to the cathedral, she quietly tells him she needs to enter the cathedral for something urgent. In return, she invites him to visit their house. You're really a smart girl, Evelyn. Initially taken aback by Evelyn's request, Apelrius hesitates but senses her sincerity. He starts to outline a plan for how she can sneak into the cathedral safely, cautioning her about the potential dangers involved. Evelyn thanks Apelrius, grabbing his hand in gratitude, which makes him feel a bit awkward since he's not used to such personal contact, or being addressed by his name. Despite this, he appreciates her kind gesture. Be careful, Evelyn. You might put yourself in danger as well as your father. Evelyn asks Apelrius how old he is, and he responds that he's 12, the same age as Cassis. Hearing this, Evelyn hesitates to speak informally, but Apelrius reassures her that it's fine given their close age gap. She tells him that she trusts him, and he nods, showing he understands and accepts her trust. I only hope that this young monk is worth the trust. On a cold evening, the parrot and its owner stealthily sneak into the cathedral. The owner moves cautiously, but the parrot is less discreet, making noise. The parrot insists there's no other way to catch Boris, who still holds on to their research documents. Evelyn was right. Boris's actions seem fishy. However, he wasn't there to interrogate Boris. He just wanted to tell him that the documents were inaccurate. Upon hearing this, the parrot became agitated, flapping his wings in frustration and accidentally hurting his owner. So, was the business with Earl a failure? Evelyn must hurry and warn her father. Jack, the parrot, asks Edward if he plans to help Boris with the incorrect documents, but Edward is uncertain. He worries about the people affected by the errors and decides to talk to Boris, hoping he'll listen. Later, Boris walks down the hallway with another priest, discussing a Monstera sponsorship that would require him to leave the monastery. Boris is unsure about the offer, while the other priests praise him, boosting his confidence. When Edward sees Boris, he's too stunned to speak, but Jack, the parrot, flies at Boris to grab the documents he's holding. The commotion leads the other priest to recognize Edward as a beggar they'd encountered before. As Edward tries to explain about the erroneous documents, Boris orders the knights to capture him. This Boris is just cruel! After all the prince and knights leave the hall with Edward in custody, Evelyn emerges from beneath a table where she'd been hiding. She realizes that Edward is the same person she met back in the capital. Determined to gather information on Boris and his plans, she decides to follow Edward discreetly. You're really good at hiding, Evelyn! Evelyn follows the knight who captured Edward, worried about what might happen if he's imprisoned. To rescue him, she approaches the knight and makes up a story about a friend who fainted. Given her high social status, the knight believes her and goes with her to find the supposed fainting victim. Before they leave, Evelyn discreetly signals Edward to escape. Once at the scene of the supposed fainting, she continues spinning her story to keep the knight distracted, giving Edward enough time to get away safely. Evelyn's quick thinking and storytelling skills allow her to save Edward without drawing suspicion. She's so cool, Evelyn! I'm impressed with her acting skills! Evelyn finds Edward after successfully diverting attention from him, but she's concerned to see his parrot Jack is badly injured. She invites them to rest in her room to recover. When they arrive, Evelyn's maid greets them with a worried look. Evelyn explains to the maid that she got lost in the monastery and Edward helped her find her way back. While the maid seems skeptical, Evelyn quickly asks her to take care of the injured parrot, indicating she needs some time alone with Edward to discuss matters privately. Evelyn introduces Edward to her father, who is cautious at first meeting. Still, when Edward clears his research documents about the burial grounds for the relics in his background, all his suspicions are removed. Later, when Evelyn was busy building a snowman, she feels that somebody is about to approach her. Without looking, she calls Appel's name, thinking it is him since she's waiting for him. Unfortunately, it appears to be Cassis, who is bringing her a cup of hot chocolate. Cassis confusingly asks Evelyn who Appel is. Evelyn said that Appel is her acquaintance who always follows her. Evelyn describes Appel as her golden rescuer. Cassis moves the cup of hot chocolate as Evelyn is about to reach for it. Cassis accusingly tells her that the reason for her disappearance these days is because of Appel. Cassis even nicknames Appel the poopy guy instead of the golden guy. When Evelyn hears this, she defends Appel and says that Appel helped her a lot in her family. While Cassis and Evelyn are bickering, Appel is happily running towards Evelyn. Not looking on his way, he suddenly trips on a rock, which causes him to fall, landing face first. Evelyn wordly called Appel's name and came rushing towards him. Evelyn then asks Appel if he's okay. He still smiled while replying that he is alright and is sorry that he's late because he had to finish some of his master's work. When Appel finally notices Cassis, the latter then asks if he is the poopy guy. Evelyn hurriedly corrects Cassis and says that Appel is her golden rescuer, not the poopy guy. Evelyn then formally introduced the two guys. Appel makes himself known as Appelrius, which makes Cassis remember Appel as the crybaby. Anyhow, Cassis sees that Appel is staring at him. He asks why, to which Appel stammers and doesn't respond. Evelyn realizes Cassis is scaring Appel at this point. She chastises Cassis to stop frightening Appel. Cassis then accusingly said that she is now defending Appel. Poor Cassis cannot even contain his jealousy. Suddenly, it occurs to Evelyn that Cassis should have been cordial with a stranger, but instead he appears irate. Evelyn thinks it may be because she no longer plays with Cassis, or because Cassis thinks that Appel stole her from him. And so, she suggested they play together to become close friends. Both Appel and Cassis have different answers. While Appel happily agrees, Cassis declines. Unfortunately for Cassis, Evelyn said that they would play hide and seek, and Cassis would be the one to find them since the result is 2 agrees and 1 disagrees. Evelyn cheerfully yelled at Cassis to count to 100 before heading out of sight and dragging Appel to safety. Cassis cannot even move since he is stunned by Evelyn's decision. Cassis still follows Evelyn and counts even if he does not want to join. Yes, that adorable side of him does exist. When Evelyn finds a good hiding spot, she tells Appel to hide elsewhere. If Cassis finds out, they will be easily caught if they hide together. Appel agrees that Evelyn is going to find a hiding place. While hiding, Evelyn sees that a spot is covered and thought it would be a good hiding location. Evelyn falls while she is looking, pushing the space beside her. As she was falling, she then closed her eyes and expected another injury. Luckily, she lands on top of a bed. She jokingly thought that she had nearly lost her 10-year lifespan. Evelyn notices she's still holding that defense magic locket Cassis gave her and thought she still had to wear it, although it did not protect her in such situations. After composing herself, Evelyn looks at the place where she fell. She thought she was lucky it was not too high and had no injuries. Unfortunately, it is difficult for her to climb up there anymore. Consequently, she turns to face the room and notices that it is a hidden compartment. She is surprised to discover such a room underground. Evelyn must leave the room since she is running out of time and they might be looking for her. While looking for an exit, Evelyn notices the room has no doors. As she was looking for another exit, she heard a voice. Relieved, she excitedly opens the curtain, thinking behind it is a door. But she is wrong, since behind the curtain is a giant mirror. Looking at the mirror, Evelyn sees the Duchess and Antonio and calls for help, but they do not seem to hear her, even if she is shouting. Meanwhile, the Duchess is waiting for Antonio. When Antonio came, the Duchess inquired as to whether the treatment would aid the child's recovery, because it is mentioned in the letter, and she believed it to be indiscriminate. Antonio then explains that mana frigidity is the indiscriminate absorption of the surrounding mana, starting from the disability to feel it. Antonio adds that if they know where the absorption site is in the young master's body, and if he can control the absorption of the mana without any difference, then there's a high chance that the young master can control his mana. Antonio said that even if it is not proven yet, if we can see the young master's magic power flow, they can completely cure his frigidity in just a matter of time. After hearing Antonio's explanation, the Duchess is emotional and thanks the priest, promising him that the Urquio family will support him as much as they can. The Duchess promises him that there would be a spot at the monastery. Hearing this, Antonio pledges that he will do the best he can. The monastery is comparable to the royal residency in Lumita, where all priests aspire to enter. After hearing what the Duchess and the priest said, Evelyn sadly realizes that a year has passed since Cassis arrived at the castle. At this point, she had assumed that Cassis would get better and return to the capital, but it is evident that it is time for Cassis to go. Evelyn can't help but wonder why she feels so depressed and dull. Upon thinking about it, she shakes her head, thinking that she only wants him to be well again, and what she hears must be a reason to celebrate. Her thoughts are interrupted when she notices that the Duchess and priest are leaving the room. She hurriedly calls them, but they still cannot see or hear her. She guesses she has to find another way out. Looking around, she notices a makeup table covered with dust and a clean perfume bottle above it. When Evelyn lifted the perfume bottle with curiosity, the floor turned, taking Evelyn to the room where Antonio and the Duchess first met. After leaving the room, Evelyn notices a familiar hallway that appears to be an exit. Evelyn runs into Boris while rushing around. She simply greets Boris and walks quickly, not wishing to speak to him. Boris stops Evelyn from leaving and asks for a moment to talk to her since he has something important to tell her. Then, Evelyn gently denies Boris's request, but he keeps pleading with her to spare a moment of her time. When Evelyn sees Boris will not yield to her, she asks him what he wants to discuss. Boris then straightforwardly asks why Evelyn introduced Edward to Earl, knowing that Edward is dangerous and has been kicked out of school. When Evelyn hears Boris, she boldly corrects him, saying that Edward is sacked because he had stolen and sold his paperwork. When Boris heard what Evelyn had to say, he stiffened. With anxiousness, he informed her that she lacks evidence. Evelyn went on to say that all they had to do is find out where the document that Boris is holding came from and they would know immediately. Subsequently, Evelyn warns Boris that although Edward could have forgiven him for it because they are friends, Evelyn is not the same. She threatens Boris, saying she won't let this go unpunished because she treats Edward as her family. After hearing Evelyn threaten him, Boris becomes agitated and declares that he won't back down, not even if she's a child. Mockingly, Evelyn tells Boris that she is the one who needs to hold back for him. Cannot contain his anger, Boris is about to slap Evelyn, who closes her eyes and braces herself for the slap. But Evelyn just saw Boris thrown away from her and is lying down. She realizes she's holding the locket with defensive powers while she wonders how it happened. She then thinks that what Boris did might have awakened the power and now believes it as a defense power. When someone approaches them, she comes running and tells them that Boris tried to hurt her. After the incident, Boris is kicked out of the monastery and is punished. The next day, while the maid is blabbering about Boris sneaking out of the monastery fund and seducing orphans, Evelyn looks at Cassis and remembers that she had tried so hard to stop him from killing Boris. When Evelyn notices Cassis's worried expression, she assures him she is fine, thanks to the defense power he gave her. Evelyn reassuringly tells Cassis that what he gave her is a strong defense power. Cassis holds Evelyn's hand tenderly and assures her that he will give her a better defense power if his illness is cured and he excels as a wizard. Evelyn then fondly agrees with Cassis and tells him that she will await his promise. Cassis grins and remarks that, although it is overly corny, he is glad to hear what Evelyn had to say. Evelyn adds that it is because he is always a nice person. Hearing this made Cassis blush, which Evelyn notices, and she teases him for it. Her teasing is cut when they are told it is ready to return home. Evelyn hopes she will have a peaceful day, but she is wrong since after the incident, Cassis and Elisa are always following everywhere she goes. The two become so protective of her. Elisa acted like her night guard, and Cassis always gave her weird objects to protect her from harm. As Evelyn tries hiding from Cassis and Elisa, she bumps into Edward and asks him to hide her from the two paranoids. Edward smiled at Evelyn and asked if they were playing hide-and-seek. Following his return from Hiah, Edward works for Evelyn's family. After everything, his school called to ask him to return because he had been cleared of all charges. However, Edward stayed at Monstera because he intended to pay Evelyn back. Elisa found Evelyn, forgetting that Evelyn is hiding. Cassis follows Elisa and casually remarks that he is correct and that they can locate Evelyn here. Looking at Cassis and Elisa talking about her, Evelyn thought that they only get along when it is about her. Since they were all in Edward's office, Edward invited them to enjoy tea and macarons from Radium. As they drink, something catches Evelyn's eye and she asks Edward what the flower is. Edward introduced the flower to them as the time flower, now his most important research. The time flower creates a time crack that connects space and time, and it sucks everything that is surrounding it. That will help discover different relics from different eras. It is also possible that wherever the flower grows, it will be the relic's burial ground. Excitedly, Evelyn said they needed to find the flower to find the relic's burial ground immediately, but Edward stopped her and said it is not easy to find. Elisa butted in and said that she had seen it during last year's summer festival while playing the hunting treasure, but sadly, she could not remember which part of the Mori forest. Cassis calmly says that he still remembered the exact location. When they arrive at the location, Edward immediately confirms that it is indeed the time flower, though it is unclear since it is on top of the cliff. Evelyn notices that it is a different color. Edward then explains that since the color is brighter than the lab, it is a sign that a crack is formed, which gives a possibility of having relics near the time flower. Jake, the parrot, is given a magic tool to stop the magic, and it is also a tool to sense the relic since the time flower has the power to suck everything around it, which means human strength cannot win over it. Meanwhile, Evelyn and Elisa jump up and down, which means the relics will continue to appear. But Cassis just stared at them and called them ignorant. Evelyn did not mind him. Instead, she happily hugged Cassis. Evelyn notices Cassis is cold when she hugs him. She told him he should have worn warmer clothes and gave him her shawl. Cassis cannot help but feel shy. Later that night, Cassis is still awake since he cannot sleep thinking about him not understanding his own feelings. He should be happy since the capital found a cure for his disease. He also feels sad and anxious because he cannot make himself leave Evelyn. Cassis also hopes Evelyn will hold him back when the time comes for him to leave. As the days pass, Evelyn notices that Kong, the dragon, is growing fast. While feeding Ruby and Kong, a maid tells her that Mr. Ellen will visit her with Ellen's friends, the little Duke, Dennis Colin, and the Knight of Commoner Descent, Selina Augustin. The maid told Evelyn they would visit her to see Kong. The next day, Evelyn and Elisa welcome the three visitors. After a brief introduction, Evelyn suggested that Selina call each other as sisters to remove their awkwardness. Evelyn is anxiously waiting for Selina's response, thinking that Selina might not like her suggestion. Selina then happily hugs her and says that Evelyn is so cute and they are entirely different from the kids in the capital. It is a completely different reaction than Evelyn is expecting. While Selina is busy hugging and talking to Evelyn and Elisa, Evelyn sees Dennis's grumpy look. She thinks he may feel unpleasant when she asks an aristocrat like him to speak casually. Ellen notices it and jokingly tells Dennis that he's scaring the kids. Dennis replied that it is his inherent expression. Ellen added that Dennis is like a big bear and is excited to meet the dragon. After the introductions and small talk, she led them to the greenhouse where Kong lives. Arriving at the greenhouse, they see that the place is very messy because Kong is fighting with Cassis, and by looking at the situation, it seems like Cassis won again. Confused with the situation, Ellen asks Evelyn what happened. Evelyn tells them that Kong bites Cassis every time he sees him, and every time it happens, Cassis also beats Kong. While Evelyn and Cassis are standing next to each other, Selina cannot help but notice that they both have matching lockets, and asks them if they made a deal to match each other. Aww, they look so cute together. Selina then points out that the two look like similar lockets, and asks if they intentionally wear them to match each other. Evelyn then said that Cassis gave it to her, and she noticed while talking to Selena that Cassis is slightly hiding the locket. She then thinks that maybe he's embarrassed that the two are identical. Lost in her thoughts, Evelyn hears Selena telling Dennis that the locket gifts seem to have no special meaning. Dennis also comments that it is only famous in the capital. Intrigued, Evelyn asks what the meaning of the locket gift is. Selena said that lockets are only exchanged between lovers where they put pictures of each other inside as a confession that they will always be together. Upon hearing this, Evelyn is shocked, including Elisa, but Cassis quickly replies that he just gave it to her as a gift and nothing more. Evelyn also tells Cassis that she knew he was going to give her a locket, so she picked the same locket. They are so cute. Please be officially a couple already! Hearing this, Selena told them that if it happened in the capital, it would look like a confession. Elisa is envious of the two, so she suggests to Evelyn that they must also have a couple's bracelet, to which Evelyn happily agrees. After the locket talk, Dennis tells Evelyn that the greenhouse is unsuitable for raising Kong. Since the dragon matures in a year while his body is big, his mind is still young. Seeing Dennis passionately talking about dragons, Evelyn asks Dennis to teach her about dragons and their well-being, and Dennis happily agrees. It looks like Kong will get all the loving care he can get, minus his arguments with Cassis. As they leave, Cassis asks if Evelyn will still wear the locket, and Evelyn confidently says yes. Evelyn asks Cassis if he will still wear it, and Cassis says he will while hiding his smile. Since the day Evelyn asked Dennis for his help regarding Kong, she has learned a lot about dragons. All her problems about raising Kong are then solved. An invitation to Monstera Castle arrived. It contained details regarding the Emperor's birthday banquet. Sadly, kids are not permitted to attend the event. Meanwhile, Apel finally finished writing his letter to Evelyn. Evelyn finally receives the letter from Apel. The letter states that the people of Hiah are busy preparing for the year-end event, and that the Snowflakes Festival is coming. Apel also invites her to see the Snowflake Festival this year in Hiah since Evelyn likes snow. During the day, visitors of the Snowflakes Festival can view the ice sculpture, and at night, people light a fire in the square and dance to it. While Evelyn is reading the letter, the maid notices that she is smiling and asks Evelyn why. Evelyn replies that Apel is inviting her to the Snowflakes Festival. When the maid asks Evelyn if she wants to go, she replies that she can't go to Hiah as her parents are gone. But the maid tells Evelyn she will ask Baron about it since they also went to the festival 2 years ago. After hearing this, Evelyn says she will ask Ellen and his friends if they want to go with her. Afterward, Ellen, Selena, Dennis, and Elisa already agree to accompany Evelyn. Cassis is the only person she needs to pursue. She then went to Cassis to persuade him to go with them. Still, this man does not sound romantic at all. Remaining persistent, Evelyn suggests to Cassis that they attend the festival to take in the joyous atmosphere. Cassis questions whether they need to go with the others while Evelyn tries to convince and charm him. Cassis thinks why not just the two of them? Evelyn answers that since it's a festival, it will be merrier to have more people coming. Evelyn mentions that she received an invitation from Apel to attend the festival. Cassis feels jealous as soon as he hears Apel's name. Cassis then accusingly tells Evelyn that Apel's invitation is why she wants to attend the festival. Evelyn feels that the atmosphere is getting cloudy. She persuasively tells Cassis she wants to hang out with everyone, not just Apel. Cassis expresses his annoyance to Evelyn over how she addresses Apel. Evelyn then defends that calling him Apel is simpler than calling him Apelrius. Then Cassis questions her why she calls him dryly. Evelyn then thinks that if she shortened Cassis's name, it would smell like alcoholic Cass. Then Cassis accuses her, saying it bothers her to give him a nickname. Evelyn then refutes that statement, arguing that they're the same since Cassis also addresses her only by name. As Evelyn is blabbering, Cassis thinks of giving Linlin Evelyn's nickname, which makes him blush just by thinking about it. His thoughts are interrupted, however, when Evelyn asks him if he's okay or if he bit his tongue. Embarrassed, Cassis shrugs it off. When they arrive at Hiah, everyone becomes more excited about the festival, minus Cassis, who is there because of Evelyn. Lunch came and they all enjoyed the meal. While they're eating, Elisa asks Evelyn if she's still her dance partner during the last day, like last time, but Evelyn says she is dancing with someone else. Elisa then angrily asks if it's Cassis, which makes Cassis choke while he eats. Evelyn calmly says that it is her friend from the temple. Elisa tells Evelyn that she wants to meet her new friend. Evelyn agrees and says that she will like her new friend, who is introvertedly cute. Elisa asks for the name, and Evelyn happily says Apelrius' name. Elisa, however, bitterly repeats it. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!